For 3 years, a little boy named Eli had not spoken a single word. Doctors ran test after test and found nothing wrong with his voice, only a silence no one could reach. His mother had tried everything, 2 therapies, 4 specialists, and countless quiet nights praying for a sound that never came. And then, on an ordinary afternoon at a rescue shelter, Eli sat down on the floor between 2 enormous 140-pound Cane Corsos that nobody had wanted, and what he did next left an entire room of grown adults in tears. Their names were Atlas and Nova, 2 blue Cane Corsos who'd come into the shelter together and refused to be apart. Atlas was the larger of the 2, 147 pounds, with a gray coat the color of storm clouds and a wrinkled, serious face that made people step back. Nova was 138 pounds, softer in the eyes, following Atlas everywhere like a shadow. They had been surrendered as bonded pairs 8 months earlier, and in all that time, not one family had been willing to take on 285 pounds of dog at once. Their story had started badly. Atlas and Nova had belonged to an elderly man 3 towns over who raised them from 8-week-old puppies, and when he passed, his family found 2 grown Cane Corsos they had no room for. The dogs arrived confused and grieving, pressing against each other in the crate. Over the next 241 days, more than 60 people came through those doors, and everyone said the same thing when they saw the sign reading 285 pounds combined. Too much. But the same 2 dogs that terrified strangers had never so much as growled at a soul. They only had each other, and they waited. Sarah Bennett had not come to the shelter in Naperville, Illinois to adopt anything. She had come because a friend volunteered there, and her 5-year-old son, Eli, loved watching the dogs through the fence. It was one of the few things that made his face light up. He couldn't tell her why, he couldn't tell her anything at all, but every Saturday, Eli pressed his small hands to the chain link and stared, and for a few minutes, the sadness in the house lifted. On this particular Saturday, the shelter was short on volunteers, and Sarah's friend asked if she minded stepping inside while the outdoor kennels were cleaned. Sarah held Eli's hand down the concrete aisle, past the barking terriers and hopeful hounds, to the last run where 2 massive gray dogs sat pressed together against the far wall. A sign on the gate read, "Bonded pair, must be adopted together." Below it, in smaller letters, someone had written the number of days they had waited. 241. The volunteer, an older man named Frank, saw Sarah slow down and gently warned her, "Those 2 are gentle as lambs, but folks take one look at the size and keep walking. Atlas especially. He's got a face like a gargoyle and a heart like a marshmallow, but nobody ever stays long enough to find out." Sarah nodded politely and started to guide Eli onward, but Eli would not move. He had let go of her hand, and he was standing perfectly still, staring through the bars at Atlas with an intensity she had never seen in him before. Before Sarah could stop him, Eli walked to the gate, sat down cross-legged on the cold floor, and pressed his palm flat against the chain link. On the other side, Atlas rose slowly, all 147 pounds of him, and Sarah's heart lurched. Frank took a careful step forward, but the enormous dog did not bark or lunge. He crossed the run, lowered his massive head, and pressed his nose to the boy's small hand through the wire. Then Nova came too, settling beside Atlas, and the 3 of them sat there in silence, a boy and 2 giant dogs breathing together. Sarah had spent 3 years reading her son without words and knew this stillness was different. This was not the frozen quiet she saw at doctors' offices. This was Eli choosing to stay, choosing to lean in, and the 2 dogs were meeting him exactly where he was, asking for nothing at all. Frank had worked there 14 years and told Sarah afterward he had never once seen anything like it. Guarded dogs like Atlas usually took weeks to warm to a stranger, and here was a 5-year-old boy the 2 of them chose in minutes. "Some things you can't explain," Frank said, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Those dogs hicked him. Sarah drove home in a daze, glancing at Eli in the mirror, still and calm in his booster seat, humming almost too quietly to hear. In 3 years, she had learned not to hope too hard, because hope had a way of breaking her, but something about the 2 dogs in that last kennel had lodged under her ribs and would not let go. For 20 full minutes, Eli did not move, and neither did the dogs. Frank unlocked the gate and, against every rule he followed, let the boys sit just inside it. Eli leaned his whole body against Atlas's shoulder, and the 147 1,000-pound dog wrapped around the child like a living blanket. Nova set her chin on Eli's knee, and Sarah, watching her silent son melt into these two rejected animals, felt something crack open in her chest that she hadn't let herself feel in years, which was hope. I know you haven't subscribed yet, but stories like Eli's are why this channel exists. If it's touched you, a tap on subscribe means the world. That night, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the way Eli had looked at those dogs. For 3 years, she had watched him retreat further and further into himself, and in 20 minutes, 2 shelter dogs had reached a part of him she couldn't. The next morning, she called the shelter before it even opened. By that afternoon, she had signed the papers to adopt both Atlas and Nova, all 285 pounds of them, and Frank later admitted he had to step into the back room so no one would see him cry. The first weeks at home were a beautiful kind of chaos. Atlas learned the couch was big enough for one person or one Cane Corso, never both, and chose himself every time. Nova took to carrying Eli's shoes room to room, not chewing them, just relocating them, so every morning became a treasure hunt. The 2 dogs shadowed the boy everywhere. When Eli sat, they sat. When Eli lay on the floor with his picture books, 285 pounds of dog arranged around him like a fortress. The house, which had felt so heavy for 3 years, filled with the sounds of 2 enormous dogs. Atlas snored like a broken engine. Nova's tail knocked a mug off the table daily. At feeding time, 285 pounds of Cane Corso sat in the kitchen doorway watching Sarah fill 2 giant bowls, and Eli sat right there with them, part of the pack for the first time in his life. Neighbors, once nervous about 2 dogs this size, began to notice the little boy always tucked between them, and slowly the whispers turned into waves hello, and slowly something began to change. Eli, who had never made a sound, began to hum. It was faint at first, a low rumble in his chest when he buried his face in Nova's fur. Sarah didn't dare say a word, afraid to break the spell, but the humming grew. Within 6 weeks, Eli was making soft sounds when he played with the dogs, little sighs and clicks, and once, unmistakably, a laugh, the first Sarah had heard from her son ever. She sat on the kitchen floor and wept while Atlas licked the tears from her face. She started a small journal marking every new sound the way other parents mark height on a wall. Week 1, humming. Week 3, a giggle. Week 5, a soft sigh that sounded almost like a word. Week 7, Eli blew a raspberry into Nova's fur and laughed so hard he fell over. Each entry felt like a miracle, and the same 2 dogs that 241 days of families had rejected sat at the center of every one, patient as stone, warm as summer. The same 2 dogs that 241 days of families had rejected had become the bridge to her son. Every doctor had focused on Eli's silence, but Atlas and Nova didn't need him to speak. They asked nothing of him at all. They simply stayed close, patient and warm and endlessly there. And in the safety of that closeness, Eli began, one sound at a time, to find his voice. Sarah read everything she could about children like Eli. She learned that for some kids, connection comes before language, that a nervous system has to feel safe before words can rise. For 3 years, doctors had tried to pull sound out of her son. The 2 dogs did the opposite. They gave him a place so calm that the sound simply started to come on its own. The moment Sarah would never forget came on a rainy afternoon in October, almost 4 months after the adoption. Eli was lying on the living room rug with Atlas curled behind him and Nova sprawled across his legs. Sarah was folding laundry in the next room when she heard it. A small, clear voice she had waited 5 years to hear. She froze, certain she had imagined it. Then it came again, soft but unmistakable, her son's first word, spoken not to a doctor or therapist, but to a 147-pound dog. Atlas. Sarah dropped the laundry and ran to the doorway, her hand over her mouth. Eli was looking directly into the big dog's eyes, one hand on his enormous gray head, and he said it again, clearer. Atlas. The dog's tail thumped the floor. Nova lifted her head. And Eli, 5 years old and silent his whole life, smiled up at his mother and said the second word she would remember forever. Mama. Sarah crossed the room and gathered her son and both enormous dogs into her arms, sobbing and laughing at the same time. The same Atlas and Nova that not one of 241 days worth of families had wanted had done what 4 specialists and 2 therapies could not. They had waited for Eli, and Eli had come back to the world for them. Today, Eli is 8 years old, and he talks constantly, mostly about Atlas and Nova, now 6 and 5, still hogging the whole couch. His speech came slowly, word by word, over many months, but it came. and doctors still can't fully explain it. Sarah has stopped needing an explanation. She knows what happened. Two dogs the world called too big and too unwanted turned out to be the only ones patient enough to wait for a little boy to be ready. She often thinks how close it came to never happening. If she had walked Eli past that last kennel 30 seconds faster, or if one of those 241 days a family had split the pair, none of it would exist. Instead, two dogs nobody wanted and one boy nobody could reach found each other one Saturday, and all three came home. If a child ever goes quiet or a dog is ever called too much, remember Eli and his two giants. The things that made Atlas and Nova unadoptable, their size, their stillness, their refusal to be separated, were the very things that saved a boy. The ones the world overlooks are so often the ones with the most love to give. Do you believe animals can reach the places words cannot? Tell me about the dog who changed your life below.